The pursuit of freedom for Dr. Besigye and other political prisoners. How long is the walk? My name is Drake Onen. Shall be discussing that particular topic in tonight's conversation. Joining me to discuss this very pertinent and very crucial topic is a panel of distinguished ladies and gentlemen who will help us unpack and put perspective to this very crucial and pertinent conversation. So in no particular order, I'll just go ahead and introduce my very able panelists who will also go ahead and get the chance to say hello, and then we can kickstart the conversation. So in no particular order, in my extreme right, I'm joined by an activist by the name Makana Kennrdy. You're most welcome. Very happy to have you here, but also grandson of Dr. Besigye. You're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Drake. And I'm happy to be here once again. It has been long, and the struggle has been hot. Definitely. But I'm glad to be here and with my fellow panelists, and I look forward to this interesting conversation.
Definitely. We look forward to having an interesting conversation with you and putting perspective to the topic. Mr. Jenkins, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Drake.
Happy to have you. I know it's your first time on the university debates, and we're happy to have you here today.
Thank you. It is actually a second time.
Definitely.
But I'm glad to be here once again, and I'm glad to discuss such a topic.
Very happy to have you here.
Yes.
You know, when you speak, you ooze a lot of confidence in your voice. But definitely we're looking forward to having an interesting conversation with you. The only lady on the show.
Yes, please.
Miss Akello, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Honored to be here.
Definitely. Looking forward to having an interesting conversation with you.
I'm looking forward to learning and learn as well.
Definitely.
Yeah, sure.
The gentleman who has appeared on the show a couple of times, he's almost becoming a veteran. Mr. Kwesiga Emmanuel, you're most welcome.
Thank you so much, our dear moderator. We are in a country that thrives on acquisition of titles, and so you might as well want to give me that. There are people in Uganda that fight for titles, I know. And now for me, when it simply comes, I will say, okay, veteran with Civic space. Thank you so much for having me and my fellow panelists. I look forward to adumulating our deliberations together with you in this particular moment. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let me just stick with you, Emmanuel, just before I bring in Makana, who has been on the front line and is still on the front line. The conversation about the long walk to freedom, the pursuit of freedom for Dr. Besigye and other political prisoners who have been in custody ever since 2021 to date. What particularly struck out, or what led to what we're seeing today, a couple of events. And those events are the ones that I want you to help us bring the audience up to speed and then give us your perspective to the conversation today.
Thank you so much, our dear moderator. Your question is that wide and open. Yeah. You ask of events. But for me, I wouldn't want to single out, well, I would single out some particular events, but for me, I would simply say, I would have this and wrap up in just one word, and I would say accumulation of anger over time, that you and I will agree that we live in a country, and in times where we have oppression from the regime, these are things that people do not want to say. But also, maybe before I go into that, I want to say that I want to advise my fellow Ugandans that are still afraid of speech to open up. Because before we can set this rolling, maybe I'll open these messages later. But I have a couple of messages from friends of mine who I know cannot have any such talks on an open platform like this, knowing that there are people going to view. But what I've been able to study over time is that people are quiet, but people are angry and people are watching. Yeah. Only that people do not have the confidence, only that people are afraid of speaking up because of the repercussions. And indeed, it takes a courageous person, a courageous spirit to be able to stand up to what Makana stands up for. Makana, I want to applaud you. Many of us have a similar spirit. Many of us are open to what happens in this country, but few of us have the courage to get to the front line and fight for what we believe in or for our rights. Personally, I fall to the category that is called the keyboard warriors. I am good at expressing my opinions online and whatnot, but somehow I have not had the courage to get to the front line. So you are an extraordinary gentleman, and I applaud you. So I get back to your point, Mr. Moderator, that for example, if we have Kyambogo Besigye as our subject matter for discussion, we are not discussing him just depending on this present circumstance of him being in prison, but a series of other incarceration scenarios, because this is not the first time it has happened. So we are saying that every time this has happened, and most times, mind you, this has always ended at a point of there is no clear justification, and he's not been found guilty on so many fronts, whereby he's always been put in prison. So over time, people are beginning to question what is the science and the logic behind the fact that you have a 4-time presidential candidate who is arrested over time, especially given time frames and timings, and then by the end of it all, after he's been in prison for quite a time, a verdict is made and there are no charges against him, and this doesn't just happen once. So over time, people have lost trust in the judicial system, and people have come to question the intention for which he's always arrested. This current one being one of those circumstances. So this is why we have this. I know I've seen many people thinking that it is a social dynamite, and I would want to think that that is true, because it's really caused public upheaval and concern and different opinions. People calling it a stage play, and just a film kind of scenario. Others feeling emotional and sympathetic for the man, and so many others. You see, we are using his name quite often, but remember, he's just a representative figure of so many other people that are just like him and in the same bracket. So for me, I think it's just because of this that has repeatedly happened that people are angry, and we are at this point where it is a national matter. If you get onto your X handle now, you realize so many Ugandans have had his picture on their profile. I don't think it is for fun that they are doing it, but it shows you how much people are frustrated. You have people that belong to different political parties. I know you've shared with so many, including you that are here with me, and somehow you can tell that the Besigye issue has gone beyond opposition, it has gone beyond NRM, it has gone beyond NUP, and it is a national concern. And every other person that is really sensitive and they indeed have emotions and a kind heart can really feel for this man. Other factors constant before we go into the legalese. So I think that is what brings us to this point and informs our subject for discussion.
Thank you very much. Makana, let me just get to you now. Listening to the submissions of Emmanuel, there are a couple of things, and what he has said, the issue at hand has transcended colors of political parties. We saw what happened with the late Honorable Segirinya. People have alluded that we have seen political prisoners being held captive and without proper cause. We have seen the Supreme Court ruling saying we should release, and all other events that have led to the circumstances that are at the moment. Dr. Kyambogo Besigye at the moment is going through hunger strike, even in custody. And we saw on Sunday, it was the 16th of February, he was rushed to Bugolobi Clinic for treatment, among other reasons. And his message is still the same, that we need to stand up for what is right, and we need, to speak up as Ugandans. And your shirt just right there says, stop impunity. So let us just speak your thoughts. Stopping impunity, and it's a message. He says it shouldn't be about himself, but also about other political prisoners as well. As a country, the status quo we are in, as young people, we need to voice out our concerns. Is this the democracy we want to see in years to come?
Thank you very much, Drake. Unfortunately, as young people, I would say our future and our present has been buried. We don't have a future, neither do we have a present. And what is happening to Doctor? It's what is happening to millions of Ugandans. A doctor is just a figure representing those Ugandans. And I've seen men in this country and all over the world, but Doctor is a man. Despite the fact that he's in prison, he's on hunger strike, and he's sick, he's still saying one word: fight for democracy, fight for justice, fight for the truth. And at the beginning, when the Supreme Court nullified the court-martial, Ugandans were happy. I was happy because I've been at the front line all this long saying the Supreme Court should pass a ruling, should make a ruling. But at the same time, I felt pain. I felt sad because being in a military regime, courts don't make sense. They don't. And this is why the CDF can come out and say the Supreme Court should apologize to him. So, Drake, what is happening in this country? We have pain. This is why some of us are leaving our professions, our careers, to fight for democracy, to fight for millions of Ugandans that look on. And you know, I always tell people this, I'm not fighting for any Ugandan out there. I'm fighting for Uganda. Because Ugandans have given up on themselves. But what has happened in the last few days on X shows solidarity, and it shows what many of us can do. And you know, I'd like to applaud Maria. Maria is an activist from Kenya, and my brother Boniface Mwangi. They have kept the fire burning in Kenya. Yeah. And the international community has come out. Today morning, I saw the Commonwealth made a statement. The African Union chairperson made a statement at that time. So where we are going, our leaders have got to understand that actions have repercussions, and we are getting there. Drake, I'm telling you, we are getting there, and sooner or later, a revolution is coming. What has happened to Doctor? It has showed us that that the regime doesn't need a reason to abduct you, to take you. Yesterday, unfortunately, Bobi Wine's brother was abducted. So these people don't need a reason. And protests this week, protests are going to be all over the city. We are saying Doctor must be released, plus other political prisoners. We have Ajobe Lutale. His family is not okay. I spoke to the son this early morning, and he's in pain. We are all in pain. So what is happening to Doctor is really unfortunate. And we are still on the front line. And I don't know how long it will take, but we shall keep on the front line. We shall say that democracy must be the #1 thing. When the 1986 class came into power, they wanted democracy. That's what they told us. That's what they told our forefathers. But along the way, power corrupted them. And you know, I was seeing the great General Tinyefunza made a statement saying that we shouldn't blame them. It's entitlement. But when you are in the bush fighting and you have a comrade, when things go south, you're supposed to be there for them. So what's happening in this country, everything is down. Every system is down. We don't have a judiciary. We don't have a parliament. We are having organs of the NRA government. These are organs. They are not even, they don't even make up the country. So Drake, we are in pain. And this is why we've come out to say that enough is enough. And I know I'm not the only young person who's on the front line and who believes that enough is enough. We are very many. And whatever it takes.
Definitely, whatever it takes. Peace.
Yes, please.
Let me just get to you. Whatever it takes, as Makana said. Do you hold the same view that as young people, it is time to speak truth to power and take on the conversation, because this is not just a conversation about one man. A man who has dedicated his entire life fighting for freedom for this country. Do you think young people need to own up the struggle?
I pretty much believe as young people we are not starting from ground level or from nowhere. Yeah. We've had men who have laid the foundation for us, you know, like Dr. Besigye. But as much as people may call this a dictatorial regime, I feel like more than that, we have leaders who are narcissistic in nature, leaders who are here to breadcrumb the public and later on play the victim. And whatever it takes. You ask how long is the work? It's going to be very long. A doctor has been fighting, I believe, from the 1990s, right?
1986.
Yeah, sure.
Till date.
You know? And we are having a man who has come always at the front line to, you know, stand for presidency, speak truth to power. So yeah, I believe as young people, we shouldn't just sit back, you know? This is the time to speak. Just like Makana said, Doctor represents the situation of Ugandans. The first photo of Dr. Besigye that went viral, right? It was, you know, this photo that represented the hope that we have as a nation, right? And if you're to look at Doctor right now, he's very weary. And I would say that's how much as a country we've fallen far. You know, someone was saying earlier that the reason as why this government has gone so far, it's because as people, we got so comfortable. You know, people came into power, they told us, we have given you peace, you know? Yeah. So it's like, settle for that. We are having the so-called peace and freedom. At what cost? Do not speak up, you know? If you try to speak up, then it's like you're ungrateful. Yeah. In 2016, during the presidential debates, the president of this nation went ahead to say that we want already made things, you know? But I really feel it's not entitlement. It really isn't, yeah. You know? As men, if you came, you bore a vision for a country, you came out, you spoke, you're like, okay, we are speaking truth to power. I would tell you, if you're to look at some of the tweets that are quoting the president's words of the 1980s to the 90s, yeah. I would tell you that President Museveni, or Mr. Museveni of the 1980s, if he was here right now, he would be trying to do what we are doing, you get. But when they say that power corrupts, you know, and then absolute power corrupts, absolutely. Yeah. We have had men who have let it go, right? We are now hearing rumors of, you know, the so-called 50-year plan, which could be propaganda. But these are things that are coming out. So we want to know, what vision did they bear? Yeah. I saw the ones are coming out the other time, and then they're like, we are fronting Mr. Yoweri Museveni, because he is the only one who can fulfill his vision. Do the young people carry or bear the vision that was, you know, that took men to the bush in the 1980s, right? If we do not carry the same vision, we ought to come out. We want to rewrite our own history, yeah. As young people. When we come out to the streets, I don't really think we are just doing it for Dr. Besigye. We are not just doing it for the political prisoners, because any man is prone to that. Today I may be seated here, the next day going here, oh, Peace is nowhere to be seen, right? She is in the court-martial. And I don't know how I get there, but then, you know, somehow you're going to get there. Or even, let me say, we've had political figures who have been tried, not just in the court-martial, but even in other courts, yeah. Right? Have they been given justice over time? You're going to come out and say, oh, they had no charges. You know, we have withdrawn the charges. And then you're like, okay, so for all the time that, you know, these men have been in the judicial system, what happened? The Supreme Court came out, it gave verdict, you know, and said whatever the court-martial is doing is null and void, you know. And then we had the letter of the president coming out and calling it a wrong decision. Do we have what's called democracy or rule of law? Or it is in the interests of a certain person? Or we are given something to hoodwink us, right? To be like, oh, by the way, we have given you. I always hear Pan-Africanists complain a lot about colonialism and neo-colonialism. But I always tell people that colonialists left, but the men who were left behind, probably the colonialists that we have right now. We are having black men who just, you know, meet in suits, masquerade in convoys, and then call themselves leaders, but we are not seeing the progress of Africa. Not even, live alone Africa, we're not seeing progress of nations like Uganda. So, for the young people to come out and rise, yeah, I believe each and every young person should come out and rise. Speak truth to power. Be able to identify what you want for the nation, you know? If you come out and say, we want a Uganda where at least each and everyone is able to have, you know, a source of employment, even if they are not working for someone. But, you know, we have something that's sustainable. Then what are you bringing onto the table? Are you able to look through the policies and you're like, okay, if we bring this, right, then I think we are good to go. So yeah, the young people should come up, you know, speak their voices, join, you know, the masses, join brains, be able to formulate a vision of their own. Because at the moment, if we've had a vision for the last 40 years, that has not been adopted, then it's a null and void vision. But what can we do? We can, you know, try to look through, get to know what works for us as the new generation. What do we want? What can we incorporate? And it is going to take us to just, let alone sitting in our comfort zones, you know, and then having fear. Because at the end of the day, these people are selling fear to us. You buy fear, they are very comfortable. We are having the first son coming out and, you know, making very reckless tweets, right? And it is being normalized, but a lot of people out there are very scared. Some of us may look at it and then we're like, maybe he's drunk, maybe he's this, but a lot of people have fear of that, because a man can come out and say, I want Dr. Besigye hanged, right? All right.
Let me just hold you there and bring in Jenkins. Jenkins, a question that I asked Chris to Peace, which she ably responds to, on whether young people should own up the fight and own up the struggle. Because that's the same rationale and reason that saw the 27 guns take to the bush their cause and take over the country later on in 1986, 26th January 1986. 39 years down the road, here we are. The same reasons that took them to the bush looks to be resurfacing, possibly the ghosts.
Yes.
And we now need to understand and assess. And still, conversation is going to circle around the interest of the young people and what we ought to do differently. We may not take to the bush, go with guns, but we could possibly be keyboard warriors like my brother Kwesiga, who doesn't go on the front line, unlike Makana. So what innovative ways can young people employ to be involved in such a struggle?
Well, thank you very much for that. I'll start by saying that all of us are gifted differently, I should say. There are people, like Kwesiga, as you've said, who are very good at writing, at writing thought-provoking content to a person, so that when someone sees it, they're like, yes, I should take up the struggle that Kwesiga is taking up. There's my brother Makana, who's able to go to the front line and say, you know what, enough is enough. Yeah. So I think that if the idea is the same throughout the whole nation, the struggle will not have to be through only activism, through only writing, but a collective struggle of people moving towards the same idea.
True.
Moving towards the same idea. If the idea is that we need to have democracy in the country, then you do it how you can. If I can, let's say, go to the street, I should go to the street. If you can do the keyboard work, he should do the keyboard work. If someone can draw cartoons like Dr. Spare, they should draw cartoons. I mean, we should just continue working towards the same thing. But it's important for me to say that while we're doing this, we need to consider something that was written by Paulo Freire in his book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed. Yeah. You should have both thought and activism. You should not only do one or the other. When you go out in the street and then you haven't thought about what are you going to achieve, then maybe you're going to go to people and you're going to be incarcerated, tortured, and what happens? But if you've thought, if you've had a dialogue and liaison with the people, and you say that, you know what, this is the direction we're going to take, tell me how you won't see 2,000 people, and tell me how the regime won't be scared.
No, but let's just talk about that exactly. We saw what happened last year. He was part of the March to Parliament protest that the young people started.
Yes.
And the numbers in terms of the noise that was on Twitter, juxtapose it with the numbers of people that were on the streets, was extremely wanting.
Yes.
Yeah? So that then raises issues. Are young people just afraid? Are young people interested? What is the issue? Because it looks like on the other end, there is that very enthusiastic generation of young Ugandans who are interested in this particular conversation and topic about a better Uganda. Yes. Then there's that crop of young Ugandans who entirely don't give, I don't use inappropriate language, but they don't care.
Yeah, sure.
Laissez-faire.
They're just there. Yes. For them, what happens is on Fridays, where are you? That's it. Yeah. Then there are those Ugandans who entirely are, like, they do not know what's going on. So, talking about freedom, because it is something that very many young people need to be interested in, because revolutions have been caused by young people. Yes. But the situation we are seeing here is we are seeing three different crops of Ugandans who are interested in three different things. Those interested in freedom, those interested in the status quo, those who are not caring at all.
Well, I'll give you two examples maybe.
Yeah.
One example is the incarceration of Bobi Wine.
Yeah.
I think you remember that time when so many people were killed on the streets of Uganda during
18th November.
Yes, when he was arrested. Very good. He was arrested on 19th November and very many people were killed. The people that were killed were mostly youth. These people were convinced that their leader is being arrested. You know, Bobi Wine embodied something that they believed in. They believed that this man is bringing about change for them. They believed this. It is not something that was projected on them. They believed this, and that's why they went out on the street. And what happened? And Bobi Wine was released. But you see, when we go on Twitter and say that, no, we're going to fight for this, I think the only lacking thing is going and having an actual dialogue with the youth. The youth must be convinced. You must go and talk with them, and then come up with something that you all agree on and move towards that direction.
That's the thing. If you need to convince someone to come into to join your struggle, yet we possibly say issues of democracy is something that affects all of us.
Everyone, yes, that's true.
Yes, and the status quo seems to show that not everyone is affected anyway. So why would someone who is not interested in the conversation of democracy, constitutionalism, and governance be involved in a struggle that you as Jenkins are interested in?
Well, we cannot say that, or I do not know how you would say that someone should not be interested in democracy unless they're interested in a military rule, which is quite disturbing to hear, but okay. So, but I think very many people in Uganda are interested in democracy because the example I gave you of Bobby Wine being incarcerated brought up many youth to go onto the streets, and they struggled for something that they do believe in. So I think maybe I termed it wrongly when I said convince. When I said convince, but a liaison with the people, a dialogue with the people, where they come up with the idea themselves, where they conjure and they say that, you know what, this is the direction that we need to take so that we can move our country forward. That is what is necessary.
All right. Yes. Let me just bring in Kwesiga. We are talking about how long is the walk. And the walk, in my opinion, would look at young people being greatly involved in this struggle. And I am finding it very hard to be convinced that the walk will either be short, will neither be long. It's hard to tell. Yes. Because the generation that should be actively involved in the struggle is barely interested in what's going on. It brings us back to the basics and fundamentals of the ideals of democracy and constitutionalism, which very many young people are very green about. You bring in issues of, very many people tell you, I'm not interested in politics. And yet, it is something that affects all of us. If you're not your brother's keeper, because if, let's say today, God forbid, Kwesiga is taken into custody on grounds maybe they say he supports a particular political party B, or he's doing this, he's inciting violence, and yet Kwesiga is actually just fighting for freedom. Now, that idea alone raises fear in very many young people, which I believe at the moment, very many young people are afraid of what is going on. Now, Kwesiga, democracy, basics. How long is the walk? Because now understanding the rationale of democracy, understanding the ideals of democracy and constitutionalism should be more like an imprint that is in many young people's minds. But in the status quo, it looks like it's only a prerequisite for a very few young elite Ugandans who understand issues relating to how policies and how politics affects them. And those who are not, don't really care and move on with life. And that is why we are in this state. So speaking about Dr. Kyambogo Besigye and other political prisoners, which is an issue of politics, an issue of human rights that should have sparked interest among very many young people, seems not to gain as so much momentum in young people like it should.
Thank you. I want to first respond to my comrade. In the book Animal Farm by George Orwell, which I believe most of us here have read, there is one of the characters, Moses, the tame raven, and that was a bird, accused of being a spy to Mr. Jones. And Moses was a very good storyteller. When the rest of the animals would be working, this bird would just be there and it is telling them stories. And this most important story it used to tell them was that they used to exist a place called the Sugar Candy Mountains, that are placed above the skies. That in the Sugar Candy Mountains, it is Sunday, Monday to Sunday. That everything is complete and very okay. Some other animals agreed and others did not. And the pigs had to labor so much, because remember the pigs were the rulers of the farm. They had to labor so much to explain to these animals that, you know what, Moses is just a liar and this is not true, because other animals had thought that this is indeed true, and they were excited, and you know, they just wanted to leave work and just go with Moses and see where Sugar Candy Mountains are. And so that was fiction in my own opinion, and with due respect, I would want to think that it's taken us to the Sugar Candy Mountains.
I think what was trying to mean is, okay, he's speaking from the abstract, but okay, proceed.
he talks of democracy, a good thing that you and I believe in. But as Karl Marx puts it, that democracy, the law are all tools of state apparatus. Now, he drives a point, but he doesn't bring it home.
True.
He asks us, or it asks us, to stand up and fight for our democracy. That is why he has a very valid point that I believe in, that youth should take interest and they should stand up for their rights in a bid to defend their democracy. But he leaves us at that point. He doesn't bring out the fact of the repercussions of you attempting to stand up. And for me, if he's to cure the miscarriage, he should address the point of, yes, you've mobilized those sensitized and you're on the streets to fight for your democracy. What response, what reception, what defense do you get from the state? What happens? And for me, if you do not address that, then you seem to, with due respect, you don't seem to advise us and to make a point. Getting back to your question, Mr. Moderator, there is what is called, I am forgetting the boiled frog syndrome. It is a psychological experiment that when you get a frog and put it in boiling water, it immediately attempts to run out of that source of water. But when you get this frog, put it in cold water and heat the water, the frog stays in, it feels a little change of temperatures, it doesn't mind, it feels a little bit of, the temperatures are rising and it enjoys the warmth, and before it can tell, it is unable to run out of this pot and it dies therein. This experiment goes to tell us how we over time, we as human beings, of course it tests our human character and response to stimuli. It does suggest that over time there are things that happen gradually and people are not sensitive to them. And before you can know it, you are unable to run out of it. I can tell you that we are here today criticizing the government for oppression and for its reaction towards a demonstration and so many other things that we are criticizing it for. But it didn't happen over time. If this just happened this year and it has not been happening gradually, trust me, the atmosphere around the citizenry would be quite different. But you know why some other people do not care? It's because it has been a gradual process. We've been in a boiling pot without our knowledge of it. This pot has not boiled today. Otherwise, each one of us, including people that think that they do not care about politics, if it boiled today, we would all be attempting to run. But we are at a point where, because of this slow heat, other people have said, this is just the normal heat. Well, this is characteristic of our government. So our reception or our perception and opinion of what happens in the status quo and about leadership and politics is quite different. That is why I am one of the people that support the people that do the demonstration. However, I don't think that yields results. We've seen demonstrations happen. We've seen the 1789 revolutions that were a result of the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand by Gabriel Principe. But for me, I would want to think that Uganda is a different environment, that we as a citizenry do not have consensus. People talk of a revolution. I don't see it happening anytime soon. Even when that is the case, I am not one of the people that believe in that kind of revolution. Because the cost you pay in such a revolution might even take another government that you dream of, a fictitious government that is going to be very perfect, might take another 40 years that this one has taken to get to where we are. So I don't believe in that. I believe in the impossible. The impossible is, I believe that how I wish this government could be able to understand the plight of the citizens, how this government could be able to let the institutions work. I believe that if this government could let the judiciary be independent, I believe that if rule of law could be functional, I believe that if there is observance of the doctrine of separation of powers, then there would be. That's why I said clearly, I am very selective in my words. I said I believe in the impossible. Because even what appears to be possible, like they say, is in my own opinion impossible. Ask me why.
Why?
We have the spirit, Makana including him. You were in the recent strike of last year. Why were you? Why were you not part of it?
I have my own ways of doing it.
What about you?
I was.
You were on the front line. Thank you. Many of us were spiritually with the people that were there. But We didn't. I tell you, I went to that place. I went around the city square a day before. I went back and slept comfortably. I looked at the deployment around that place. You see, that is my personal reason. He has personal reasons that he doesn't make mention of. So many Ugandans out there have their own reasons. But if you want to make an exercise,
let's agree that the reason is people are afraid of doing,
and they are cheering on those that want to take part. But trust me, very few will take part, and I don't see a revolution happening in Uganda.
But how do you explain the fact that there are times at which in Uganda people have actually stood up and gone taken to the streets and have protested?
But it's countable. But the few, you see, when you look at the interest, just look at the interest and the turnout in numbers.
Yes.
In 2010, the walk to work.
Yes.
What was the turn up of Ugandans in that particular protest? Quite few. Yes. Though we had critical politicians who are part of it. Yes. We look at recent protests, March to Parliament. Yes. Very many young Ugandans who are making noise on the streets of Twitter, among other social media platforms. Look at the turn-up. What was the response? One thing.
I want to tell you another thing, Drake.
Yeah.
Another factor that each one of you is going to have to know. Another critical factor as to why we cannot have a uniform voice and have a successful revolution. Noting that I am not part of the people that support a revolution. In as much as I believe and pray for change in affairs of government and our country, is that people have their personal biases about these demonstrations we have. Have you heard of people saying that this is so and so's initiative? Meaning that even another person who is able-bodied and they indeed have the conviction to run to the streets will not, because they feel this is not authentic. Because they've known, it is Makana, a grandson to Kiza on the street. This is a family affair. This one runs off. It is Akello. This one is just because their region has their personal biases about to. I mean, so many factors that do not lead to this.
One common question.
Especially that natural bias and people.
Okay, well, guys.
The revolution shifts its impact and importance from its cause to who is leading it and for what reason. To an extent that even when there is no visible figure championing it, people always have a figure put at the front. This is political drama. This is Lukwago at the front. This is the Agasa, I mean, this is an Agora thing. These people, this is their project, they are getting the money for. So many factors. Trust me, I am very sober today. I can tell you, I don't see a revolution happening in Uganda. If we are to do things, I mean, we need to employ other means which we should be able to revise as citizens, including this talk and whatnot. I've always believed in violence, but with our government, I don't think you can be more violent than it is.
Let me first tell him something.
I don't see it happening.
Your biased statement brings us back to Malcolm X talking about the house Negro and the field Negro.
The farm Negro.
You get. So, it as well brings us to a point of that certain persons are comfortable. I will tell you right now that people who are saying, Besigye's incarceration is a ploy to bring him back to the political scene. You get. Now, as much as that
just to pause you there. What do you think happens to a mind or to an opinion of a person who has been going to the streets thinking it is authentic, and right now that has come to their attention? Remember, it might be propaganda, it might not even be true, but they've had that and somehow they've thought, hey, this could be true. Do you expect this person to go back to the streets?
Okay, look here.
Just answer a yes or no, then you can proceed.
No, I can go back to the streets because I know why I'm on the streets. The thing is this, let me give you something. I am a Christian, right? I know why I go to church. You understand the point? So, whatever any kind of thing that a man of God does is not my problem. I have a personal relationship with God. So, it should come back down to us as Ugandans. Do we have a personal relationship with the cause that we stand for? That we can defend it, whether which man who stands before us named a leader for us is or without us, we can still move on with the cause. And as much as you say that there's no revolution that is going to come, we need it at the end of the day. Let me tell you, even if we sit back comfortably and we're like, let the president in power rule till he dies.
But I think we have agreed.
We are not going anywhere.
His submission has said we need it, but the feasibility.
Anyway,
Let me just quickly first bring in Makana because what I
say
seem
if
to
I
say.
keep
Quickly, I
to
can
argument,
say.
then I might, other people might not submit.
Quickly, I can say that
So let me
okay.
just say exactly. Let me concede.
Because
Mm.
her argument
Yeah.
seems to suggest that, one, we don't have a common suffering. You see, Christians go to church for various reasons.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
But one fundamental reason stays and stands. People go to church to pray to God.
Yes.
And what takes them to pray to God is for their own personal issues.
Yeah.
And those personal issues is what takes you to church
Yes.
to put your to put yourself to put your knees on the floor
Yes.
and cry out to the Almighty God.
What's the ultimate goal?
Of course,
Heaven.
heaven and also get what results in
No, but the
with all the
ultimate goal
problems.
is heaven, right?
She has
True.
a point, and we need to understand that
Her point
in
is
our
right.
particular context, what is the ultimate goal for this that we are running for?
For this that we are running for, we want a better Uganda. Like, we
And-
want change.
And are you convinced that each one of us in this struggle,
Mm.
including me, the keyboard warrior, are all purely intentional, and our intention is that the ultimate goal is
If you're
that.
not intentional, I am. And I believe the Ugandans who are.
And by
I am
the
an
way-
individual,
Are you
and
intentional?
I have me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wow. Then you need to
So I
do
just want to submit
introspection.
from a point of any other, because I have my personal feelings,
Yeah.
but I know also how other people think and reason.
Yeah.
Trust me, you might be, and I might be, and Makana might be,
Yeah.
but the rest of the people might not. And so, in as much as we are here, yes, we are giving our personal views, but we cannot negate the fact that we understand the population from which we live, and we know the point, because you interact with society. You've come from wherever you've come, and there are people you interact with, and you understand that some other people are detached for different reasons. So I want us to include this, because we are a representative figure of majority of the Ugandans that are elsewhere.
And you
So
put
if
a lot-
we only stick to our personal opinions, we do not have a point to make, because then we do not have our cocktail is not inclusive
Yeah.
of
All right, guys.
every
All right.
ingredient
Let's
that we need to have.
let me just quickly first bring in Makana before we go into the break. Makana, you've been on the front line, and we just want to get your experience, because personally, I've not been on the front line. I'm just like my brother here,
Keyboard
and
warrior.
not only keyboard warrior. The fact that I'm hosting you on this conversation here
Yeah, sure.
shows that I'm also contributing
Yeah,
to the
sure.
cause. I may not be on the front line, but we can have a conversation that can help influence and change other people's perspectives. Makana, being on the front line, personally, let me speak from a perspective as very many young people. I am afraid of being arrested by the police. I am afraid of being tortured. I am afraid of being killed. What other reason would I take to the streets to stand up and speak truth to power if I am afraid of all those reasons?
Onen, before I answer that question, you talked about different sets of people,
Yeah.
and before I get to the different sets of people,
Yeah.
my comrade here spoke about dialogue, and you know it's very disheartening and heartbreaking that the institutions of young people that we would have held these dialogues with are captured by the state. USA is kneeling for the president. It's supposed to be a non-partisan institution. We have the NYC, that one. It's the same route, they're on the same. So dialogue is hard. We've had dialogues and we are tired. And we are still having dialogues. We've been in civic education, the set of people that you talk about. There is a particular group of people that don't know what's happening in this country. And we've been trying to extend civic education. But you see, the state has changed how patriotism is viewed. This is why after maybe every holiday, you have a group of people at Chankwanzi. Now, that's what the president terms as patriotism. That's patriotism. So, and all the things, being the things, you really feel heartbroken, you end up being heartbroken. But in the end, Onen, it would be, actually I would be lying if I told you that I don't get scared. And other groups of people, that I speak for, that, you know, we do get scared. Even during the march to parliament, I was in town the day before. The guns were all over. But it's this pain that you carry that triggers the confidence. And you know, once you're on the streets, you don't know what gets on you. You just charge forward. And he spoke about not believing in the revolution. It's the only thing we have.
Unless he has great-
Revolutions do take life, yes. And the mere fact that we are on the front line, we know what would happen. I would be shot on the streets. I have a family, I have dreams, I have parents who love me. But I wake up every day, I do tweet the things we tweet. Yes, you might be a keyboard warrior, but we can't say that what you do does not add on the struggle. It does. And some of us treat worse things. At the end of the day, you feel terrible. You have to post phone numbers of people. So we do get scared. But with that, do anything, getting scared and keeping quiet?
But Kennrdy, there is this young Ugandan, yeah, who, well, possibly he has a decent job. Decent, I mean, at least he's paying his bills, he's earning. And he's surviving, not thriving, surviving in the economy. All he just wants to do maybe is working his way up to leave the country. For him, all he needs is just the peace the way it seems to him, the way it is, and that will be it. He's not interested in whatever is going on to possibly pick up his phone and tweet because he's afraid that if I'm applying for my visa, I may be stopped. All those reasons are there. Because honestly speaking, I'm speaking from the perspective of that young Ugandan who is frustrated like you, but doesn't want to take it to the streets because he's like...
Can I interject? A point there, what I was trying to say at the beginning is that these are planes of an engine.
Yeah.
You can't have activism alone or talking and thinking alone, philosophy, let's say. You can't have them independent.
Yeah.
You should have them working together towards the same thing, and that's what we had spoken about earlier.
Yeah.
You know, we had said that people have different ways of doing, of fighting for freedom and fighting for justice or constitutionalism.
Yeah.
People have different ways of doing so.
Yeah.
So it should just be that everyone comes to a consensus, which my brother
is hard.
impossible, but
Which
it is the only way.
But it's a reality.
Yes.
Very many young people have divided attention at this point in time.
Sure.
So you cannot go ahead. Will you force me to?
No.
You can't. Makana, will you go ahead and force people out of their universities to take it to the streets?
Can I say something?
No, let him first finish, then you come.
Okay.
Then we can go for a break.
I think let us let I submit once. Let us speak.
A revolution is like death. It's the
In
ultimate
fact,
goal.
they say that
It will come.
revolution is eat their own children.
So what I want to tell the young people
to loss of lives.
is whatever you choose, be it happiness or suffering, find purpose in it, right? Just like Christians, a lot of Christians think that, being on the streets and preaching the gospel is doing the Lord's work, and they think the other man who's maybe in any other field and he's working in it is maybe not doing enough for the gospel. But just like he said, we have different talents.
Yeah.
We are gifted differently. Maybe what young people who are maybe concentrated on surviving at the moment shouldn't do is to try and discourage a young man who is willing to put his ambition aside for the core vision, the bold vision that we have as young people. Because at the end of the day, these are the very people who are going to pull us behind. But guess what? You can't come on the streets, right? But if I tell you something that is happening, give me a positive thought about it. Push me and be like, it's okay, support in any way possible. Now, these are the people who are the so-called elites who are like, oh, you should just let the government be and slide how it is. I am telling you, we are at the cliff, right? It's okay. All men are going to be pushed towards that cliff. Now, how we fall is what I really can't tell. You get? So, what are we doing? Get yourself invested in what is happening, because it will spark. I'm telling you, what sparked off the 1789 revolution was not a one-day event, right? But there was that specific thing that, men were like, okay, now we are done. You're not listening to us, we won't listen to you, so we are marching.
The calling of the States General Meeting.
Thank you. So that is it. That point is coming for Uganda. But just like he said, if the government could understand, one thing that I would say, if I met the president of this nation, I'll tell him, dear sir, one of the things that you're going to offer this country that is really good is retirement, right? See the country progress. Sell us your vision. If it works for us, we shall try and incorporate it. If it doesn't work for us, let us do something that works for us. Because at the end of the day, even when we let him rule till he feels very satisfied, men can't get satisfied. We are still going to get to that point where we are going to have, hungry wolves around him who want power. And believe me, we are not far from being like Libya or Congo, among those things. But if a man stood one time and he bore a vision, let him leave other men to incorporate the vision. Sell your vision to other people. If it doesn't work for them, they can't renovate it. Now, that's what we want as young people. We don't want to overthrow anyone.
That's what you want.
Our ultimate goal. That's what I want. If there was a way that the president could step down, we have another person, you know, move on with, because I really believe that the 1980s vision wasn't that bad for the country, right? And we have another man who is incorporating that, renovated it to work for us, you know, as Ugandans. People are very, okay, I don't really think we are so hungry to see blood that a certain man is drained. We don't want to see our president like, you know, the president of Libya. We don't want that. But if you don't, you know, if you push too hard, the Waganda said that when you press the nose so hard, it's obliged to bleed. So that's where we are, you know. Give the people what they want. Listen to the people. Someone say that after every 40, 50 years, there's a generation that doesn't want to know. You fought in the bush, so what? You know? But we want something else. At the end of the day, there have to be cycles of change of power. Men have to grow and outgrow. They have to learn and relearn, you know, and unlearn certain things. So that is it.
All right, Makana, just summarize and we'll go for a break.
You know, she speaks about something about telling the president to retire. But one thing about the president over time that our elders have learned, and some of us have learned, is that he believes that democracy is a white man's language. It's something of the white man. And so he believes that Africa should be ruled by military men, by soldiers. It's something he believes. You see, Onen, it's quite interesting, very interesting. And you see, you spoke about the average youth. You have a decent job, a well-paying job. Unfortunately, some of us left journalism school. We even did practice journalism. We only did maybe for a few months, and we were catapulted into activism. And you know, what's interesting is that the movement of young people that is growing, it's not that they're people from I'd say from a low background. No, there are people who have gone to school, they have read books, they have good jobs, but they've left all that aside. And you know, these are the kind of people that you don't want to tell that we fought. Yes, we fought, but what? What next? What about us? I myself don't want to know you fought, so what? You know, I have a vision. I also have a vision. You know, and you know what's interesting, and to every young people out there, you're still saying that you have the decent job, but the day that you go to the hospital, you have a loved one in the hospital, and you reach Mulago, there are no drugs, reality will kick in. You realize that you know, we all have one suffer. We in one country, one Uganda, one suffer. We are suffering the same. You know, and we are getting there. And then we are getting there. And I don't know how long it will take, but a revolution is coming.
All right. Let me just take you guys for a short break. This half of the show has been hot, and we'll be right back. See you in a bit.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media, or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back from the break. Just before we went into the break, and even in the break, there has been a very heated, contentious debate in the group. I'll just start with you, Kwesiga. We talked about there is a lot of abstract ideologies being thrown around. Start with that.
Pardon?
You said during the break that there's been a lot of abstract ideas being thrown around. That there is as you know, the arguments that he raised, and everyone on the panel raised. And you had your reservations to those argumentations that have been raised, and would like to pick your views on that, on the particular subject matter that we're discussing.
The psychologist called Philip Zambado did an experiment called the Stanford Prison Experiment, which I believe you know about, SPE. And he did it at the University of Stanford. And he had 24 young men and women to act roles as prisoners and as prison guards. This experiment was to take 2 weeks, that is 14 days. And right after the third, fourth day, the people that were to act as prisoners were really acting that. The people that had been asked to act as prison guards were acting as such. Like in real sense, that had gone to their mind that they are serving in this position. And this experiment that was meant to last 2 weeks lasted 6 weeks, and they couldn't hold it anymore because these people had become so rude to the prisoners. The prisoners had now submitted their rights and their convictions and conscience and everything to the so-called guards. Remember, this was just an experiment, a psychological experiment, and it goes to show the implication and the nexus between the positions we occupy and the change in our behavior. These people talk of what could happen after change of government, and say, for example, if we had Museveni out of office today. And something ran to my mind right then. We have youth that have been part of us and have been with us, because I'm not sure if I am even within the bracket in this struggle. Makana, you know some of them that you were with on the front line, who are nowhere, who were very vocal, and right now you can't even get a word from them. Is that a lie?
Well, I'm still with the team.
You're still with it?
Yeah.
Probably over time you'll get to see. That sometimes we fight for things, and when we get to what we were fighting for, we act exactly that. I've seen people, you know, of people that have fought, who was he the spokesperson of the UNATU, and so many other people, I do not want to mention names, who have been very vocal on TVs and on what, and before you know it, people have been lifted from this position to a different position, and people have lost the cause. Their cause. The question then is, has this person seen what they were championing for fulfilled? What is the answer? Definitely not. But they've had a person again, and they've gone to a position they were probably criticizing, and they felt how comfortable it is, and they've known that the only thing you have to do to keep it is you go mute. So this is another challenge we face. If the people that are spirited about this cause, like he is, can keep that zeal even when they become a member of parliament tomorrow, we would have this possible. But because after a given stage, you act like those you were against. We know of people within our circles, even at this very stage, who people have accused. I want to use accused because I am not a judge of being chigat people. You've heard those words. We know so and so is very vocal, but behind things, we know what this person does. We've seen them in youth leadership, we've seen them in UNSA, in NYC, and other youth structures, chigat people, and for them, that's what they're after. They do not have the cause at heart. Yet those are the people that have opportunity, who could be commanders at the front line. So you have a Makana and a Kwesiga here making noise, and yet you have no good leadership. I know he will want to rebuttal and say that even without that leadership, we can do a thing. But remember, after closing a line, you give up the move. So these people behind you have no ladders to step and go by. So that's why I find the allusion to this one here takes us to democracy, which I don't believe in. That one believes in a demonstration,
so what do you
which I would believe in, but I don't find possible, and I don't find it happening anytime soon. I have told people, and I say it again, that I am a very confused person, because I don't see any of those. Maybe one will happen and yield at the end of the day, but as of now, democracy is just a tool that the state uses, because democracy only favors the government. True. We don't find it beneficial. Demonstration, democracy still applies by the government to say that you're obstructing order, and the Public Order Management Act comes into play. That's when they remember that it is a statute that needs to be used, and it is going to be used against you. So you equally do not find that avenue open. It is closed, yet we would think it is the only possible avenue. And this other one that is open, the speech and whatnot and dialogue, is equally just, so what does the government have to lose when we come to TV and say all this that we are saying, well knowing that we are not even saying it to the core. There is, you possess no threat. So it is equally not yielding in the long run.
You spoke about having an MP entering into parliament, and then they end up becoming like what they were fighting against, you know, staring into an abyss, and then you become the monster that you are talking about, as Friedrich Nietzsche said. But, you know, democracy is like water, and we are like fish. If you remove the water, the fish are not going to survive. So you're talking about democracy. Is it existent in the country?
It is.
There are signs. There are signs that the state uses to show that there is democracy.
I think the kind of democracy that we have is democracy that is scripted by the state, right? That today, when people are going to vote in parliament, it's obviously majority over minority, right? Some MPs are going to be bought off. At the end of the day, it's democracy. Come back to the elections, the people who are going to be bought off to elect their leaders, right? So we are not seeing it. But my question would be, does that mean we should give up? You know, does that mean we should stay back?
If that question is to me.
Like I asked, are we going to sit back and become victims of circumstance? Or we are going now to sit, be able to draft our own cause. If men could go to the bush, if it took going to the bush, then my dear, you better do it. Because no one is coming here to rewrite your history or write your story. No one is going to do it. Each and every man is going to write a story that is theirs. The men in the 80s wrote their own story. Yeah? If you sit back, want to write on their own script, you will write on it, and they'll still rewrite another script for you to follow. You get? So this comes back to us. We are settling for what we may call freedom. At what cost? At the cost of silence, at the cost of compromise. You are telling me that people get into leadership and become the monsters they fought. I will tell you that if I was to listen to anyone in the opposition to tell me anything, I would listen to people like Winnie Kiza, right? She has been there, she left power. We are having opposition that is coming back for the third, fourth term. What are you still doing? You've not nurtured leaders to be like you. You can't stand before people and be like, I am recommending this young man or this young lady, you know, to stand and serve the people like I have done. So that means it gets back to us as the people. Are we going to play by the script that is given to us? You know, it's a matrix thing. You get, you're either going to survive, it's called survive in the matrix, right? Or work outside the matrix. So just like you said, you are a confused man, be a madman. Right? Do things extraordinarily. That is it. At the end of the day, they know you're going to come and protest. And so what? You'll go back and sit. They're going to come and make funny tweets. You look at them and you're like, anyway, you know, that's the state, right? They are teaching you to be comfortable. They are teaching you to compromise. And that's why they want you. Because at the end of the day, there's what's called indoctrination. If you have to read the Mastery of Self, they talk about what's called indoctrination. We've been indoctrinated, right? We have settled, we are like, okay, Akello, we have peace. We are scared to be like Libya. No one is not scared of war. I am very much scared. If at least not for myself, I would be scared for my family, my siblings, and all that. But far worse things can come in. You get? So you either settle, right? Or find something that works for you. You get? I was looking at our history and we've never had peaceful transition. You understand? Don't you think that Dr. Kiza Besigye could have asked for bail and come out, you know? But he had to do it so that there's something that is prompted. There's always going to be turn of events, you get? We are either going to use those events in our favor to be able to establish something that we want, or play by the script, you know? So you're either going to sacrifice your ambition and whatever to draw a bigger vision. Like I said, I call upon all the young people. Incorporate a vision that you want, a vision that works for you. Work towards that vision. Otherwise, settle for the script of the big man. You get? Someone said that the system is rigged, so the wise eat off the system. Believe me, if you want to eat, you're going to eat of this system. They're going to breadcrumb you. That is it. You get? But there's what we call self-indoctrination. We've also self-indoctrinated ourselves. We have settled. And we are like, okay, that's the system, and to what cost, to what end? Okay, let's sit back, birth children, get married, and our children will also come back to the same stories we are talking about.
Let me just hold you there. Let's imagine, just imagine if Dr. Kiza Besigye wasn't inside the cells now. We have had political prisoners inside the cells ever since 2021 to date. 2022 passes by. A few Noob supporters spoke, a few family members spoke. There was minimal fuss, really. 2024, 2025. We now have Kiza. We have 2024, towards December, November there when they took Dr. Kiza Besigye inside. Now this year, that's when the fire hits up. We have had Ugandans, political prisoners, inside the cells, and there was minimal fuss.
That's true.
Minimal fuss.
Yeah.
So how sure are we? We just waited maybe for. I'm just saying we have been silent all this while, yet we have had people before. Dr. Kiza Besigye, good that his name and his profile is sparking out this, but there are those Ugandans who we barely know.
Yeah, sure.
And they've been inside there, and we have not been fighting for them. For me, as me, I would sit back and say, okay, when as Ugandans would we at that point become our brothers' keepers? Not just at a point whereby one big name, because Dr. Kiza Besigye has been on the front line ever since when we were kids. I have been seeing, because all of us on this panel, I believe, are kids of 2000. And we have not seen any revolutionary leader like Dr. Kiza Besigye. I know by the first time we had sense was around 2006. I'm on this panel. I know that's the first time you started seeing Dr. Kiza Besigye. Now, we have seen all that. But now, Kwesiga, as you summarize, she makes very, very succinct and very straightforward arguments. When shall we speak? When there seems to be very minimal smoke before the fire comes up. Because we are only speaking right now when the fire is blazing.
I saw a quote some time back that those that were seen dancing were thought to be mad by those that couldn't hear the music. And I want to tell you that there are people that will see us having all these sorts of discussions, and they look at you, at what is this one up to?
Yeah, sure.
There are the people that have not heard the music, and we are dancing, and they wonder what we are dancing up to. But trust me, this is a ripple effect. It's a thing that will move until each one of us is a victim. We don't say all this in a bid to criticize or to say that we hate this government. We have no personal hatred for any person in government. Personally, I don't. But I'm only saying that where there is a wrong, it should be corrected. And so I want to put that right. And I want to say that at the end of the day, our affiliation to political parties has blurred our vision for Uganda, and it shouldn't. That should stop. Drake and the people that are with me today, if we still hold NRM, NUP, FDC, and at the helm of the broader Uganda, we still have a problem. That is why it is very hard for a person of NUP to come here and appreciate Museveni for a thing. That is why it is very hard for a person in NRM to come and applaud opposition for something, which they feel is actually, people feel by the way, but they don't want to speak. What do I lose? I am not for opposition, I tell you. I don't know where I fall. I am an objective Ugandan. I tell you, people are affiliated to parties to a point that they have totally lost sight of who is oppressed and what is happening. We need to correct that. Responding to you, two men, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, those men lived around 1925. Malcolm X was born around 1925 and later assassinated in 1920, I think 29 in Manhattan while he was giving a speech. These men were chasing the same dream. They had the same ultimate goal, and that was to free the blacks that were in America, the enslaved black Americans. But they had divergent views to take upon the same subject matter. Malcolm X believed, in fact, he had a phrase that was, by all means necessary. So for him, he believed that we must do this and we should do it by all means necessary, including rudeness, if that is to be. On the other hand, Martin Luther was a more polite man. He believed in democracy. But I tell you that none of them received a casual and cordial reception by the whites, because trust me, both alternatives are thorough, including one who directly calls for violence and one who has audience and who speaks and people understand. In this instance, Malcolm X represents Makana. This man is for Martin Luther. So they are equally right. And all those need to be brought on board, because not everyone can go by Malcolm X's outrageous and rudeness, and not everyone is a believer in democracy. So that's why I'm seated in between and I don't know where to fall, because I know these tactics need to be interplayed, and maybe one could precede the other and we could have this happen. But at the end of the day, what I would pray for is for the latter, and that is Martin Luther, because then you have less destroyed, you have peace. The question of whether that is still possible, I don't know. We'll be here to discuss that at an opportune time. Is this my conclusion?
Thank you.
Thank you. It's the last bit for me.
It's all right.
Okay.
I'll come back. Let me just get to you, my brother Jenkins. You opt for dialogue.
First.
Corridor.
Dialogue first.
Of course, which is the safest. We have a very young and thriving in other aspects that we need to maintain. And peace is that one thing that we definitely need as a country, as a continent. And dialogue is the safest option we have. And that is something many young people need to be involved in. But the question is the feasibility. And that is why I just want you, maybe you have been arguing and advocating for it, but I just want to see how feasible that is.
Maybe I could first correct on what dialogue should be like in this scenario. And I told you that these two are planes of an engine. I told you that you don't have activism alone when you go to the streets and you're two people and you're shot down and with no effect. Or you don't sit back and tweet a lot of things without doing anything about it. What I talked about was the harmonizing of these two. You first, I told you this. If we say that in this room it is very hot, let's say that's our problem, all five of us, and then we talk between ourselves and say, what should we do about it? After talking about what we should do about it, that's exactly what we're going to do. You may say that Drake maybe is very strong, he can fan. Then let Drake fan. Maybe if that's what's going to let the room become cooler. If I have energy to walk and go and open the door, let me go and do that. But let's collectively work towards
the same goal.
The same goal, which is making this room cooler. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about dialogue only as talking and leaving that in theory. I'm talking about dialogue harmonized with activism, so that everyone is on page and is on the same page as each other, and then they go towards the same direction. That's the only way, to me, that we can achieve success. I will also go on to tell you that he talked of George Orwell. George Orwell had a book called 1984, and in this book 1984 there was dictatorship. There was dictatorship, so to speak. Yes, there was dictatorship. The big brother was ruling over these many people, and there was a figure who I should say is the main figure in the book, and he tried to stand up to Big Brother. Instead, he was incarcerated, indoctrinated, and killed. But the hope, according to George Orwell, lied in the people called the proles. The proles, who are the general populace, who are very interested in drinking, merrymaking, and eating a lot of food. That's what they were interested in.
That signifies our Ugandan.
Let me learn. Yeah. So these proles are where the hope lied. And at the end of this book, nothing had happened. Big Brother's reign continued. But one thing that I like is that he showed where the hope lies. When you see that the glimmer of hope is here, that's where you should go and work. If the glimmer of hope is in the pros, go to the pros, sit with them and tell them, you know what, we can't only sit and drink. But how about we have a way of constructing better streets and see what they think about it. When they tell you, continue with them. And that's how you have what you had in Uganda. We had the riots for the Kabaka moving to Kayunga. Remember that? That's when you have such an outburst. So that's what I believe in. Activism is very good, but it's not good alone. You must think, then act. Thank you very much, Drake.
Thank you. That has been very powerful. Yeah, I just like the nexus that you use with the 1994 book of 84 by George Orwell and our current status quo. Makana, you have been symbolized as the Malcolm X. By all means necessary. That's what he used to say. So, and your all means necessary is take it to the streets.
You see, I'm a believer of the Bible. Yeah. And St. Augustine raised something very important. He said that an unjust law is no law at all, which means I have a right and a duty to resist with violence or civil disobedience. We take to the streets because it's part of civil disobedience, and it's even constitutional. And actually, one thing that I disagree with are dialogues. I dislike dialogues. Because in Uganda, we've refined dialogues with one thing, envelopes. You'll enter a meeting expecting to have a dialogue, you get out with an envelope. That's what is happening to religions nowadays. I'm a proud member of the Anglican Church, but nowadays I'm having to rethink strongly and heavily about it. Because you're seeing envelopes everywhere, every bishop has an envelope, they're all gagged, they can't speak. That's where we are. And going to the streets, it's what we can do. We are keyboard warriors, we do tweet. I tweet, I don't know even how many times I tweet. I tweet and my account is even tired. But that pain, unlike several Ugandans, they don't feel each other's pain. Yeah. But OHT Panga raised, he has a famous quote, we shall never see the Uganda we want unless we develop a central nervous system that feels each other's pain. So I feel pain. Whenever I see receipts and receipts of people stealing and looting property in parliament, I feel terrible whenever I see political prisoners. And just like my brother said, actually, I think you said that before Doctor was arrested, the environment about political prisoners was a bit low. And last year I was at the party of Doctor, and he said that he's retiring at 70. So what happens if Doctor retires at 70 and we have a similar issue? Who will stand up for to give that same environment that issues are echoed out? So I believe as young people, we have to take up this matter. If the leaders that are supposed to lead us are not doing so, let us be the leaders that lead our fellow young people. We should rally young people. And I'm telling my brother here.
Just there, remember he made the point that we have youth structures like UNSA, National Youth Council, among other youth structures. And we have seen some leaders in those structures. They get in there, they're called in for a meeting, before you know it, they're mute. How sure are we that you as the youth leaders who are going there will not enter into that room and forget what was happening behind?
Actually, I'm not running for office. I'm not running for office, yeah. But I'm fronting young people to run for office. And that issue, power is something that you can't say that maybe if they go there they won't eat. It's hard. So you just have to take a step of faith. And I've had several discussions and confrontations with my brother Jacob Besigye of the National Youth Council, telling them NYC. But I personally no longer believe in these institutions. First and foremost, unfortunately, young people don't have the funds, they don't have resources. The ruling party has resources. This is why even the past USA elections, it's an NRM cadre who went through, who's the president. And give it, let me say 1 year, actually a few months down the road, you'll see what USA is up to. The last time before the former president gave it out, the IGG summoned the USA the USA cabinet. USA was drowning in debts where they don't even know where the money went. So these institutions that are supposed to be fronting young people and giving a hand to young people, they are dead. And I don't believe that they will even rise up again. So we have to create our own institutions. And this is why we are mobilizing young people. Unlike the multi-party system that was created, part of the democracy tool by dictators, we are mobilizing young people. And I'm proud to say that we have several young people from different political parties. We are creating our own table. If these leaders cannot create a united force to fight for the country, we are going to create that. We are creating that. We are saying, hey, it's our time. And I can tell you, I don't know how long it will take. My brother here called me Malcolm X. I don't know how long it will take, but Malcolm X will always be on the streets. I'll be on X, and we've already sacrificed a lot along the way. We've lost friends, we've lost relatives. People can now no longer associate with us. Why? Because you're against the regime, you're on the street. So everybody thinks that you have a bounty on the head. And it's hard to
it's a price you pay for freedom.
It's the price we've paid, and now it's hard to back out. We can't back out. So the only way for
is to move forward.
Is to move forward. And we are seeing the price, and I don't know why I believe that we are getting there.
Right. And
I may not make it that day when Uganda is finally, but I believe that my children, my grandchildren, will see what I fought for. And in future, when books are written, I believe that my name at least will be on the last page.
All right, maybe as your concluding remarks.
First and foremost, I'd like to thank Civic Space for offering us a forum at a time when several media houses cannot offer us a platform. And I will also encourage young people that this is our time. If you feel like you're ready to serve the people, go serve the people and never betray the people. We are here, we are still fighting for Dr. Besigye and other political prisoners. When the timeline, social media has been hot, and the streets will be hot, and they're still hot. Thank you very much, Onen, for hosting me.
Thank you very much, Kennedy Makana. We'll definitely keep safe and keep up with the spirit. Jenkins.
Yes.
Concluding remarks.
As you started by saying that in around 2006, well, I just started understanding. We saw Dr. Besigye being incarcerated those days, and I didn't understand why. And now it is 2025, and I still don't understand why he's being incarcerated. I just hope that in the future, as the planes of an engine take shape, as both talking and thinking in tandem with activism take shape, that at least my children will understand what will be happening in their days. I don't want the misunderstanding to continue to also their generation. So I would like to also thank Civic Space TV for giving us this platform. It is hard to give platform to people to talk things like this. But I thank you for giving us this platform and for inviting these people that were used on the panel, very brilliant people. And you yourself for moderating this.
Thank you very much. Yes, Peace. Like your name, Peace. It looks like
I am a very peaceful person, by the way. Yeah, but my last remarks would be to the young people. You have a script before you, right? You either conform, to what society is telling you, or you be your own master. Let the indoctrination go. Learn and unlearn. Understand the Uganda you want. Know what it takes to have the Uganda you want. Understand what policies you want for your nation. That's where we start from when we want to build a new Uganda. Someone was saying, we don't have, is it a transition plan? Something of the sort. But yeah, we still have time. We can sit down, create it.
But Honorable Norbert Mao is there creating.
No, all those people have failed us, I would say. At a certain point, you reach, conform to the system. When you read from dictatorship to democracy, right? That's where they talk about dialogue and negotiation. Now, in this country, if we are to go for dialogue, at the end of the day, it will be in favor of, the other party, because they have the upper hand. right? But as well, maybe one day when the Lord touches their hearts, you know, like Pharaoh, there comes a time where sometimes the Lord has to harden your heart, you know, so that, you know, you feel the pinch. Use every platform that you have as young people. Preach the gospel of change. The gospel of change is not just change of government. I will tell you, some of these things start as personal behaviors that we have, values, the integrity we have. A man of integrity is not going to go into office and is manipulated, right? They would still stand their ground. A man of integrity would know when to get into office, serve his purpose, and get out of office. That's what, you know, some leaders like Winnie Kiza have done. Gotten into office, felt they've served their term, and they're out. You get. So some of these people who are still there, they think they are the best dancers. I really feel we are tired. We are very tired. The stage is exhausted. Let's rebuild our own stage. We also want to dance. You know, we could teach you some dance strokes. Please sit down. Maybe you could guide. You know, you'd be like, I think this move is not right. Yeah, so that's what I think. Let the young people have their own vision. Incorporate it with yours. I'm grateful to Civic Space. So grateful to be here to add on a voice. You'd ask me how long is the walk? I will tell you it's short. When they tell us that our Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ is coming back soon, yes, it's soon. We don't know how soon, but we are working towards that. So it's short. No one should tell you it's very long.
All right.
Yeah.
Definitely. I will also be hopeful, just like you know.
Sure.
Yes, Kwesiga Emmanuel.
Thank you, Drake. You know, I would have loved to read this message, but since it is to my phone, it might appear biased, and so I would want to ask you to read this as part of my concluding remarks.
Hello, sir. You're a good writer and a good friend of mine. Why is it that you never push for the injustices going on in our country? I have seen your mentor, Dr. Besigye, push, yet you, on the contrary, you're giving it a deaf ear. Should I just say that you see these campaigns moving around your timeline, or you're just not interested in human rights advocacy?
This is a question that I got from one of my friends, and I can tell you I've never felt more guilty like I did when I saw this.
Sure.
For me, I pondered upon it, and for me it was not just a message to me, but it was a message to so many of us that we are not really doing enough. How do you respond to such a question, knowing that I couldn't counter-react and say I've done enough because I've really not done enough? So it is a challenge to you and I that we need to do, because this person is not even specific to democracy or to demonstrations, but doing enough, whatever line you take, but it's important that we do enough. In the play titled Betrayal in the City by Francis Mbuga, we have a man, Mosese, who was imprisoned having given a speech at a burial of a student, a thorough speech in a fictitious Kafira state. And so he was imprisoned for 2 years. And while there you have Jerry joining him. Jerry had had an interface with Mulili, a state apparatus, and then for some reasons, such political reasons, he was also arrested. And so they are together, they are put together in the same cell. And when the Askari brings Jerry, they have an interaction between the three, the Askari, then Jerry and Mosese. They had quite a different, a wider talk. But one of the statements that Jerry does make to the Askari, because the Askari told Jerry to keep silent and not to, in fact, he told him that it doesn't pay to have a hot mouth. But later on, as they proceed, Jerry asked the Askari that, do you ever realize that the outside of this cell could as well be another cell, implying that you might think you are free, or your close attachment to a government is such a safe place, but for some reasons and at some point it really catches up with you. And for as long as you still have injustice in society, then you are part of the injustice, and at one point you might be a beneficiary today, but the next day you might be a victim. So it is not important that we keep quiet about these issues and we normalize them. I want to challenge my fellow viewers that in as much as we have people we support for politics, in as much as we have parties we believe in, but Uganda is the broader picture. We can wake up today and we do not have NRM, we probably have another party, or we have NRM renamed, but Uganda is Uganda even in the next years, for as long as we still have this geographical mapping. So our reality number one should be to our country. And so let's not close an eye and speak X instead of the Y, because we all know truth. But also in the same play, Doga, one of the characters, asks a question that what is it that is in money that is more precious than life? And so I pose the same question to you. What is it that is in money that has kept us silent? What is it that is in money that when a person is elevated to a position of a huge salary and remunerations, they've gone silent? What is it that is in money that is more precious than life? Thank you so much, Civic Space, the crew, and you, the moderator, for having us. In fact, for always having us, we appreciate it. It's always very important and imperative that we are able to share with the rest of the people. And to our viewers, we are here because you are there watching us, and we look forward to getting feedback and, an addition to our discussion. And that's when we can be able to learn and learn and relearn. To you, my fellow panelists, it's been a pleasure having you on board and learning from you, Malcolm X, Oprah Winfrey, and Martin Luther King.
Amen.
I submit.
All right, guys. Thank you very much, Kennrdy, Jenkins, Peace, and Emmanuel, for taking time for being part of this very interesting conversation. Personally, I've enjoyed it. It's been a very thrilling debate, and I believe you, the viewers out there, have also had the same feel. And from Civic Space TV, the crew, Brittany and Paul, for making this possible, to the Center for Constitutional Governance for making this possible, and to you, our dear esteemed viewers, for always following and watching through. This is Civic Space TV. My name is Drake Onen. See you next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye.